good morning, Mr. Plant. You would like to call me Mr. Plant. And thank you so much for your time.
Nick is fine.
Nick is fine. Okay. Perfect. So thank you so much for your time this morning. And you have got time from your such a busy schedule. And BTC Wires really wants to thank you so much. And so we have few questions regarding your indulgence with SOSV as well as dLabs. The thing has been blasting, it's been going all over, and we have been seeing a lot of news coming around dLabs and your involvement in blockchain technology. So what are your, I'll just gonna start with my questions that how has your journey been in this industry, and how did you enter the blockchain world, and how did SOSV came into the picture?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, let's dive right in. I've been involved in Bitcoin and in blockchain tech for a while. So I think I first got involved back in 2011. I was working on another startup at the time, but a friend introduced me. I forked Jeff Garzik pool and ran a mining pool for a little while. As a sort of like side hustle or hobby. I squandered most of what I mined, of course, or lost the rest of it in the Mt. Gox collapse. And I was busy on other projects. I kind of got turned off for a little while until a friend turned me on to Ethereum a few years later, when the real potential for that sort of snapped into view for me. In the meantime, I'd also gotten pretty involved in equity crowdfunding. I was an early advocate and involved in the creation of the U.S. Jobs Act. Title III, which became Reg CF. And through our work with WeFunder, we helped design and shape that. So we had a pretty heavy hand in the early onset of equity crowdfunding in the United States. So I guess you could say that, and a lot of this sort of just pushed that forward, and it kind of grew from there. Meanwhile, I was introduced to SOSV back in, I think it was 2010. Okay. And I went to China to work with SOSV partner Cyril Ebersweiler to co-pilot the early China Accelerator and Hacks programs. I loved what they were doing with deep vertical-driven programs for startups, and so I kind of kept being involved as a mentor while I worked on other things, other startups, and eventually they sucked me further into the orbit. I think that was around 2015, at which point we, SOSV, had started doing a few Bitcoin and blockchain-oriented investments. Most notably BitMEX, which came out of our China Accelerator. And we've done a few since then. We were really just kind of waiting for the right time from, I guess you'd say, an ecosystem development point of view to do a full-fledged program. And when this opportunity with the Mergo came around and the fantastic resources they bring to bear here, it made it a really obvious move for us, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. We have a lengthy questionnaire altogether, so we'll be going all to that. So I'll move to the next one. That SOSV runs some of the leading tech startup accelerators, as we have told. What will be the go-to-market strategy behind the partnership with the Mergo to start a new startup accelerator and venture studio?
Well, we've been doing these accelerators for a long time. I'd like to think that we have the process for that down. I'm not sure exactly what you think of as a go-to-market strategy for us here, but our job is always to find and invest in the most promising early-stage startups. And by working with Emergo, I think that'll give us an even larger amount of resources and a larger amount of knowledge to deploy, and really help these early-stage startups kind of get where they need to be in the space. Mm-hmm. So, I think one of the unique things about what we're doing here, I guess, is that we're also doing these fellowships with Emergo. I'm really excited about those. It's something we don't do with a lot of our programs. Mm-hmm. So they're designed specifically to explore new opportunities in the Cardano blockchain, whereas the accelerator itself is not protocol specific. So we're funding 5 startups starting in January, and we're also doing 5 of these fellowships. The startup program runs for about 14 weeks, which is pretty typical for our accelerators, and we invest up to $200,000 US. And then the fellowships are annual fellowships. So the idea, I guess you'd say problem areas that you're interested in investigating, or concepts that you're interested in exploring specifically for Cardano. and we fund those for and work with those entrepreneurs or those researchers and developers for a full year. Some of those might be proto startups, so some of them might end up being ideas that get commercialized later on. Some of them might be open source. Some of them might be core infrastructure. Some of them might be pure research. We don't really know yet, and that's one of the exciting aspects of it.
Okay, that's really great. I'll just want to get into your blockchain, where you think the blockchain can be rightly executed. So we have a question out there. Blockchain has covered most of the areas. According to you, which are the sectors that can benefit the most?
Well, we're going to be releasing a call for startups here pretty soon. We're going to publish that. I think it's going to answer those questions in more depth. There's obviously a lot of areas here, both horizontal and vertical, that need a lot of work. We're still at a really early stage. There's a lot of work going into financial instruments right now, and rightly so. Healthcare, digital property, so obviously supply chain applications, and the I can't talk. Energy. We'd like to see people working on applications that address these problems, specifically in the developing world as well. Developer tools, core infrastructure, data oracles. Those are all things that I feel like need a lot of focus right now in order to pave the way for the next round of innovations. But honestly, the biggest opportunity I see, if you ask me about one thing, I'd say is, we need tools and services that lower the barrier to entry and make tokens and apps, dApps more useful. And I mean that both for end users as well as for developers. So
absolutely.
I do tools are here.
Absolutely. So day before yesterday, we did an interview with Mr. Tim Draper. So he was also, purely focusing upon, he see a potential of healthcare becoming more viable with blockchain. And his focus completely was, healthcare, and of course the government systems, how the government throughout the world runs. So his main focus was around political currency and the cryptocurrency, which is of course the real debate right now. Everybody's trying to do, and of course, at what the valuable point given by your side, which is we need to find a user-centric application of blockchain. There are a lot of applications coming along the way right now, but less of user-centric applications, of course.
Well, I mean, I think the big hairy areas where it could have a massive societal effect, are a lot of them are around digital sovereignty, right? So, once you're able to, hand someone a digital ID and come up with a system for, verifying those IDs, you can start storing a lot of information that kind of naturally dovetails with that. So, healthcare information, is a great example of that. And this information shouldn't be owned. It shouldn't be in a that we own. It should be ours. So I think, obviously that's a massive opportunity, but we also need ways for normal people to access this information and to make it routine, right? So, my background has always been more focused on B2B applications and developer tools than it has about consumer tools. But I think here you're going to see that both strategies are necessary in order for this to kind of get where it needs to go. So I think that we'll have to be exploring those things in tandem.
True. I'll move to the other question. Recently, in a press release mentioned from dLabs that it is expected that all startup companies, as well as the founders, will be able to benefit from mentorship opportunities available at SOSV, as well as the extensive network that has been established by Emergo. Can you explain that in brief and just take us through that?
Well, I mean, SOSV is it's a mentorship-driven accelerator, or we run mentorship-driven accelerator programs, right? So we have this huge network of mentors who work with our different programs, who have deep, technical or business expertise in different areas. We have a huge alumni network and a bunch of program partners as well. They all support our startups in different ways. Can mean weekly meetings. That can mean coming in and doing sessions or Q&A. So combining that with the network that Emergo has, particularly in this area, and their in-house resources and the partners that they have that are developing, the Cardano network and other related networks and protocols. I mean, I think we've just got sort of a perfect soup of really great mentors that will help kind of push forward these startups and help them learn from their own mistakes as well as their successes. Mentorship's always been like a very key part, I think, to running an effective accelerator program.
Of course.
I think you'll find that the best ones in the world do that.
True. Agree to you. I'll move to the next one. As you said in a recent interview that you prefer to invest in an ecosystem that you identify as macro trends, like disruptive food, life sciences, and synthetic biology. What's your take on that?
I mean, that's kind of how we invest, right? So, we target these sort of macro trends. So we do programs in different spaces like, we have a life sciences program. We actually have two of them, IndieBio and Rebel Bio. So those address opportunities in synthetic and life sciences. We have a program called HACS that runs in Shenzhen that kind of helps to unlock the potential of hardware, IoT, and robotics. So, I mean, we look at these things that these ecosystems, I guess you'd call them, that we believe can dramatically alter what it means to be a human and what quality of life looks like for people in 10 plus years. It's really hard for me to look at what's happening with distributed ledger technology and decentralization and think that it's not one of those things, right? So we created this program to address how blockchain tech and more broadly decentralization can affect economic incentives that underlie, pretty much everything we do, the ways we collaborate with each other, the way we trust, the way we identify, the way we share, the way we govern, the way we consume resources, how we bring new projects to life. So in a way, it's almost sort of a macro trend, right? It sort of underlies all of these other things. And unlike a lot of our other programs that I feel like are deeply vertical, this one is almost deeply horizontal, if that makes any sense at all.
Okay. Let's move to the other one. That the survey and the reports about fraud rates of ICOs is a major concern of this industry because we see funding and the funds which startup raises or the ICO is running parallel. At least they run parallel the last year, and now they're trying to get the momentum in. And what's your step do you think that could be taken to control this situation, and how you think about ICOs and VC funding running on parallel ends?
Wait, there's fraud in ICOs? This is news to me. I mean, it's a huge problem. Yeah, I mean, there's been some recent stats that are kind of terrifying. I mean, certainly regulation is a big piece of this, and it's going to evolve a lot. This is all still very, in the absence of that, self-regulation, having a good ethical center, and designing for proper governance are all really important. I do think that formal regulation will get there, will catch up, and it's sort of like what's happened up to this point sort of sets the stage for what will come next. So I think some of this was inevitable, but I do think that in the meanwhile, we should be focused on working with other people who have strong ethical bases and who are structuring those projects for the long term. It's actually funny because I think that this current crypto winter. It's kind of one of the best things that could be happening to the end. You're seeing the speculators and the fraudulent actors. You're seeing all these people, they sputter out, right? They're not in it for the long haul. They're in it to make a quick buck. People who are building real startups here, people that are building projects that are actually going to have long-term impact, they're focused on technical innovation, right? They're focused on governance. They're focused on impact and outcomes, not making, a few quick dollars. We want to work with those people. We want to work with the people who are, focused on tech, focused on governments, focused on outcomes, right? The people who are going to be in it.
Great. So I'll move to the next one. What advice would you like to give to those who are new to the blockchain technology and cryptocurrency altogether?
I mean, don't be averse to risk. Try things, get your hands dirty. If you're non-technical, learn how to code. I mean, even if you're not a technical co-founder, you learn how to code. If you don't have at least a basic understanding of how to write software, you're going to quite literally be left behind. it seems to me like, what we're doing here is, talk about how we're building programmatic money. But I think the bigger picture is we're building a programmatic economy. So you want to be able to help program that economy. So I guess that's it. Like mostly just, don't be averse to risk, try things, don't be afraid to experiment, and get your hands in the code.
Great advice. I myself together, try to code, but I'm straightforward to the business guy. So I understand this, that I have to keep my hands still the business part.
Well, you don't have to be, an amazing developer. Not everyone's going to be an amazing developer, but you've got to have an understanding of it. And I'm sure that you do, to appreciate what's capable, to help make the right decisions, and to make sure you're part of the conversation. That's all.
True. So I'll move to the next one. If, let's say, I have a startup company and an innovative idea, what are the ways and requirements to approach dLabs and how we can get there?
You can visit the website. That's time for me to insert an advertisement, right? dLab.vc. Or you can just send us an email. You can reach me at napnap@dlab.vc. I love to get emails.